Today on the agenda, I will be setting up a raised bed. Now, as you see, I kind of already got them started. So I was like, hey, let me go ahead and make a video about this before I actually finish the thing. My name is Kenny, and this is Robinson Handy and Technology Services, where I talk about home improvement and a whole lot more. Today, out working in the garden. It is currently March of 2023, and so it is springtime. It's almost springtime. It's not quite spring, but it will be here soon. So I want to set up the raised beds in my backyard to be able to grow some food and all that other stuff this year. Now, I've done raised beds in the past, but this year I'm actually taking a different approach to it and actually trying to retool and try to grow some stuff that'll actually be sustainable, if you will, and maybe put a little bit of technology into it in a later point. All right, so let's come back to the raised beds. So what I did is I started out with cardboard. Now, you don't have to necessarily use cardboard. It could be newspaper, it could be junk mail, it could be a bunch of other things, paper products that you want to layer the bottom with. And the reason you're using the cardboard down here is to get rid of the grass that's underneath, weeds, whatever else, and it's essentially a weed barrier. Now, what will happen is this cardboard will break down through the worms coming up, as well as the rain going down and decompose and so forth. So in about 6 months to a year, if you dig all the way down to the bottom of this, you won't even see the cardboard that is there. All right, and then the next step would be to put in the soil. So what I have is flower and vegetable garden soil, not potted soil. Potting soil and garden soil are two different things. If you're putting it in the ground, use garden soil. If you put it in a pot, use potting soil. We got the three main ingredients, well, I guess you call them four, that I typically use to start off a bed. So we have soil, we have peat moss. I don't have a specific brand name of any of these ingredients, so just take that as you will. So soil, peat moss, and then compost. Now, what I typically try to do, and I forgot the white stuff that's in there, that is Epsom salt. So typically what I try to do is to have a third of each, and then the Epsom salt, you just throw it in enough in there just for it to be enough, and mix it all together, and then throw your mulch on top. So I'm gonna finish putting this compost in here and then stir this up. And of course, when you're working the garden, there's, for some reason, some random frog just decides to show up. See him? Yeah, there he is. Right there. Next, what I do is take the hose, or if you have a rainwater catchment system, take the water from that, spray your raised bed. I'm not soaking this on purpose, but I did put some water in there so that it does not dry out too quickly. There's rain forecasted for tomorrow, so I'm not going to put a lot or as much water as I normally would put in, but I do want to put some in to keep that dirt, peat moss, especially the peat moss, because the peat moss right now is dry. If we actually come over here and look at this, you can see like it's literally a powdery poof, dust. So you definitely want to keep that in there, because the peat moss has the ability to aerate the soil when it gets wet and then when it dries back out. So you want to go ahead and soak that, leave that there. Next thing will be to throw some mulch on top of this. So I have some pine stuff over there that I'm going to use. All right, next thing you want to do is to soak the bed with water. So that's where the hose pipe comes in. The reason I'm not going to soak it too much is because it's supposed to rain tomorrow. So I'm going to at least wet it to keep it from blowing away in the wind. This peat moss here, for context, is like super dry, like it's powdery. Like you can try to clamp it together and it doesn't even stay together. So I want to wet that so that it doesn't just blow away. There are storms forecasted. So the last thing I want to do is have my peat moss and anything else in here dry out and then blow away in the storm. So wet it. If you're not going to have a storm anytime soon, soak it with a lot of water. Don't be afraid to wet the cardboard as well, because, well, all of this will become one ecosystem once you actually start growing and planting stuff in it. Next will be to put on some mulch on top of this. The mulch has been applied. Now I use this cypress mulch. Not sure if it makes much of a difference. If you see, it just says cypress mulch blend. And what I have found is that if you use pine mulch, that it has a tendency to make the soil very acidic. As a result of making the soil acidic, only things like blueberries and strawberries and other plants that can tolerate the acidic soil will grow and do well when you use pine mulch. This year I said I'm going to try cypress mulch and see how well the plants that I put in here do, or how well they grow. What am I going to put in here? I'm not 100% sure yet. And the reason being is because the spot here is under some trees, and so I'm going to have to get those trees trimmed back and cut down, or do them myself. But I will see how that will work. So right now I did not add any more water to this mulch. This mulch has been sitting out for a moment, so it has collected some water just from sitting on the ground. So that's why it looks kind of damp as it is. Some parts are darker than other because those darker parts were on the ground. Also, I only put mulch in the holes around the edges. The reason being is because if you do not put anything in these holes on the end bricks, something will grow up in there. And typically it's something that you do not want, like a weed. So what I'm going to do is, or what I have done, is to fill these up to make sure that nothing, if a seed does fall in this location, that it has a difficult time getting planted because of the mulch that is in the way. Now this was 2 bags of mulch to fill up all the holes in addition to this space. This space is 2 bricks wide, so that's about 16 or so inches. And then this is a brick and a half, which is, a brick is 8 inches if I'm not mistaken. So 8 plus 4 is 12. So it's 16 inches by 4, by 12. Which is a decent amount, not to mention the stuff on the borders here. You can plant stuff on the borders as well. In the other beds, I typically plant or have planted onions, and I can show you that really quickly. So here's one of the holes that is there that is filled up. I believe this is garlic chives or onion chives, and likewise there's another one here as well. And then we have another one right there. So they can support, smaller things like this. If you have like oregano or something like that that can really take off, you'll want to consider putting them in the holes on the edges to constrain how much growth that they can attain over, the growing season. That will wrap things up for this particular video. If you have any comments or questions about starting a raised bed, feel free to drop those down below. I'll be glad to answer them and possibly even make a future video related to starting a raised bed. Last but not least, please be sure to subscribe and follow. Also, give this video a thumbs up, and more content is available at rhtservices.net, where you can learn more about home improvement, checklists, and how to maintain your home. Thank you for watching.